Hello and welcome to week 2. Today's recorded lecture will specifically look into Introduction to the Academic Essay Structure. Now, this lecture is essential before you actually look into the two topics of Assessment 1 that you can choose from. Also, the essay format discussed in this lecture is similar to the essay format of your Assessment 1, which is the argumentative essay. So please pay close attention to this recorded lecture. Okay, now moving on to the next slide. What is important before writing up an essay is, firstly, before deciding on a topic, do have good understanding what is required by the topic. So you will have two topics to choose from for the first assessment. Now, do not rush into deciding on which topic. Rather, once you have been introduced to the two topics, it's best to actually do a bit of background reading, then only decide on which topic that you are most comfortable with, or the topic that you have confidence in. Okay, now only after you have understood the topic and its requirements will you be able to have, or will you be able to plan and produce structured piece of essay which is logical, coherent, and with precision. All right. Now, for Assessment 1, we not only require you to elaborate using your opinions, but you must substantiate your essay, or especially your body paragraphs, with information from published work. Okay, now let's move on to the next slide, which is the basic format of an academic essay. Now, a typical academic essay begins with the introduction, or the introductory paragraph, followed by the main body. Well, the main body, the number of the main body paragraphs vary depending on the requirements of a particular essay, but for Assessment 1 you are only required to produce 2 body paragraphs. And finally is the conclusion, or the concluding paragraph. So a typical or a basic academic essay format comprises of these 3 main paragraphs: the introduction, the main body paragraphs, and finally the conclusion. Okay, let's first look at the introduction. Now, for your first assessment, what's required in the introduction is firstly a lead-in statement or lead-in statements, which generally introduce the topic without mentioning any specifics. Okay, it is best to introduce the topic that you have chosen with general introductory statement, or statements in 1 to 2 or 3 sentences. Okay, and then provide the definition of terms if it's necessary. Okay, now the definitions must not come from you or your own description of how the term is defined, but it is best to actually use or to cite from a credible article that provides any definitions of terms in the topic that you have chosen. And the third element of the introduction is your stance. What is your stance or your position in the in the essay topic, whether you agree, whether you disagree, whether it should or whether it shouldn't. Okay, and then finally the 2 reasons to support your stance. All right, okay, let's move on to the next the next part of an essay. Now, the main body comprises of several body paragraphs. For your assessment 1, you're only required to produce 2 body paragraphs that provide that discuss reasons to support your stance. Now, the body paragraphs should be longer, and they should develop analysis and describe arguments, or they defend arguments, and it should be in chronological order. Okay, it has to be well organized in order to ease reading. It has to be chronological, logical, and there have to be in-depth arguments as well, which is why supporting your 2 body paragraphs with only your personal opinions do not make sound arguments, which is why your 2 body paragraphs will have to be substantiated with evidences from credible resources. And when we talk about citing published work, when we talk about using information from published work, we do not mean by copying and pasting from this from the original work, from the resources, but it means that we borrow the information from published work, and there are few steps to follow. It requires paraphrasing, which is rewriting the original work using your own words, and we will of course go through paraphrasing, summarizing, synthesizing, I believe in week 3. Okay, all right, moving on. Now, paragraph structure. For each body paragraph begins it with a topic sentence. Okay, a topic sentence states the main idea of the particular paragraph, and then followed by all of the supporting details. Now, the supporting details can be in the forms of sound opinions, okay, and supported by evidences from published work, and then finally a concluding statement that reiterates the topic sentence. But this, however, is optional. All right, and as for the conclusion or the concluding paragraph, it firstly reiterates or repeats the thesis statement, which is in the introduction, and then summarize the main points of the body paragraphs. And the final bit or the final remarks can either be writers or your concluding thoughts or ideas, or viable suggestions, if any. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Well, outlining the academic essay, this is the second part of today's lecture. So, an outline is a great way to organize your thoughts and research if you're preparing an essay. And while we go through this, do remember that the format that we are discussing for the outlining of the academic essay for this lecture is similar to the essay format of your first assessment. Okay, so the outlining process comes in 3 stages. The first stage is to focus on your topic. Once you have done background reading of the 2 topics, choose one and then focus on your topic. Form a thesis statement. Okay, whether you agree or disagree. All right, and then generate ideas. Okay, look at both sides of the arguments and choose your stance. Okay, only after you have actually brainstormed the pros and cons, the both sides of the topic, then only you should be able to choose your stance, whether you should agree or whether you shouldn't agree to the topic. And then once you have chosen your stance, choose the best 2 arguments. Now, these 2 arguments later on will be developed into 2 body paragraphs. So make sure that the two arguments are broad enough that you are able to provide more elaboration, evidences, supporting details to support your two arguments. Okay, and then ordering, arrange, arrange your what do you call that? Your arguments, and then what are likely to be your supporting details in logical order. Okay, argument 1 for body paragraph 1, argument 2 for body paragraph 2. Okay, then from there you should be able to provide supporting details for each argument. Okay, because the two arguments cannot be combined in one long paragraph. No, they have to be in two separate paragraphs. Okay, and then only you start writing. All right, now moving on to the next slide. All right, outlining the academic essay. In the introduction, it is important to have the thesis statement. The thesis statement states your stance, whether you agree or disagree with the topic, and then the two reasons or the two arguments to support your stance. Okay, so each body paragraph comprises of your argument 1 and argument 2. And moving on, outlining the academic essay. Here's a sample. Now this is for illustration. So the topic here is, should new media allow unlimited freedom of expression on the internet? And then take a look at the thesis statement. The thesis statement is usually located as the last sentence in the introduction. Okay, take a look at the thesis statement. This essay proposes that new media should not allow people to express freely on the internet. So this one here is the author's stance. Okay, the author believes that new media should not allow people to express freely on the internet because, and these are the two arguments. Firstly, it can harm national security. That's the first argument. And secondly, it can prevent the cases of identity theft. So there are two arguments to support. Argument 1 or reason 1, and then argument 2 or reason 2. Both of these two arguments, what they do is they support why new media should not allow people to express freely on the internet. So from the thesis statement itself, as a reader, I can already visualize that the two body paragraphs will firstly talk about how limitation of freedom of speech on the internet should be limited because it can harm national security. So as you can see, okay, for body paragraph 1, begin with the topic sentence. The topic sentence of the body paragraph is the main idea in a complete sentence. Do you see the parallelism? Okay, and then the second main idea in the thesis statement, the second argument in the thesis statement is reiterated, okay, as the first sentence in body paragraph 2. All right, so that's quite clear, right? Okay, moving on. I'm running out of time because Screen-O-Matic only allows me to record 15 minutes. Okay, now another example. Take a look at the title here. Do you think that the enforcement of tourism tax will provide more benefits or drawbacks to the country, especially to the tourism industry? The thesis statement. This essay agrees that tourism tax will bring more benefits than drawbacks. So this is the stance, and this is the first reason. Okay, it generates a stable source of revenue to improve tourism facilities, and this is the second argument, the second reason to support. Okay, that tourism tax will further enhance the development of tourism industry in the country. So from the thesis statement, which should be allocated at the last sentence of the paragraph, will be reiterated as the first sentence for body paragraph 1 and body paragraph